Welcome everybody. Special video for you here today. I have a guest with me. Some of you may know him. Hopefully you stick around through this video. I think a lot of value is going to come out of this. This is Demetrius Jelatis, and he's going to grace us with his expertise and experience and wisdom by going over a ghost drill that I played, ghost 9-ball drill that I played. So I'll have him do kind of a breakdown. We're going to do commentary together. I'll explain kind of, what was going on for me. And then big picture, guys, this is sort of a before version of me and kind of undergoing some new training, new techniques, some of it by way of the Slate Billiards Club Patreon, which I can recommend. I'm going to throw links to that down in the description. Demetrius can tell you more about that. And then I do intend on attending Demetrius's boot camp as well a little later in the year. So he can tell you about that, just to put out a plug. And yeah, I'll let Demetrius take it away and explain a little bit about who he is, what he does, and then we'll get into the ghost set.
Thank you, Anthony. Yeah, so Demetrius Jelatis here from Minnesota. I'm a competitive pool player, and I've been training pool full-time for over 6 years. I offer 3-day one-on-one boot camps, and I've been aiming at strong, intermediate, and advanced players. So there's a lot of information out there for beginners, and learning the game, you get better quickly. But as people learn what they can find on YouTube and they get better at pocketing balls and learning the basics, a lot of people start seeing their forward progress stall out. And that's really where, a little bit of guidance can help. So I've been running these boot camps, looking forward to working with you in person. But the problem with that is, I'm in Minnesota. These 3-day sessions, they involve travel. They involve a commitment of time and resources. So a year ago, I started running this online training group where my goal is to be able to break the barriers so that we have a very low point of entry for time and money. And so we've got this group, we train online, and we work on everything from cue ball control, pattern play, mental game. And unlike YouTube content, which is kind of one-way transmission, information that we just hope hits you, this allows me to actually see how people are playing, learn their game, and steer them to and give them guided feedback. So I like to say the difference between content and coaching is that it's interactive. So this is actually an example. Anthony jumped into our group. So now I'm going to be able to see his game and give him some feedback. And then offline too, we're going to be working together to help tool up. So this is, like he said, this is the before picture. This is how he played before we started working together. And then it'll be interesting to see what we can do with his game here in the road ahead.
Awesome. Yeah, super excited. Thanks again, Demetrius. I'm going to shrink us down so that the table is visible, and we'll get into the set.
Wonderland. Okay.
So there you go. Yep. Okay. So yeah, this is my home table. This is down in my basement. This is a 9-foot table. Some of you viewers may not have seen my home table before. I'm trying to do more streams. Just moved in. Just kind of got the pool room set up. I had to remove one of the support posts down there, so I had like a whole structural engineering thing that I had to it was a nightmare. But what I'm playing is thanks, man. It's really coming together. It's like a dream come true. So yeah, couldn't be happier. But gushing aside, what I'm playing is Ghost 9-ball. It's break, it's take ball in hand. Each ball is worth a point. If you make the 9-ball, that's worth 2 points. So basically each rack is worth a total possible 10 points. And then I keep track of 10 racks of that. And then I get my total at the end of it. Yeah.
Yeah, pause it here real quick before you start shooting.
Yeah, we'll want to look at the layout here.
So a point per ball, maximum of 10 points per frame, and then you just play. Is there a certain number of frames you play that way?
I play 10, and it goes pretty quick. You can get through 10 pretty quickly, hopefully. But yeah, the idea is at the bottom right, you'll see there's a letter grade. Well, there's a number, there's a letter grade, and then there's kind of a category. So I have a spreadsheet set up to where it automatically spits out immediate results of like how I'm doing by the end of that set. And then I've been tracking that in the long term. So I've got my like bar charts and, line graphs and everything of like how I've been doing. When I get the new cloth put on, that's going to have an effect. When I have the pockets tighten up, that's going to have an effect. When I did like no spin September, 2 years ago, that had an effect, and I tracked some of that stuff on my channel. This is the first real set that I've played in my house, Race Against the Ghost. I played for fun and I practice on the table a lot, but this is the first like real competition. And I will say, just to put like some of the psych stuff out there were some nerves coming into this because I did it with the intention of, I want to put this in the Slate group. I want to put myself out there. This is the before picture. I'm going to have people critique this. So I definitely came into this with some anxiety, some kind of intimidation, pressure, internal pressure I created on myself of I want to have a good showing here.
Yeah, and in just a moment we'll get rolling because we definitely want to keep it rolling. But I
Yeah.
will say this: I appreciate you posting the rough set because first of all, I can tell the difference between a good player playing poorly and a bad player playing above their head.
Great point.
And when somebody cherry picks a set where they just happen to make 4 bank shots and run out the rack and they get to be the hero, that's not real. And it's like this is not curated. This is the reality. And so the same way that we break down under pressure when we're recording a ghost set publicly, that's the same way we break down in tournaments. That's the same way. And it's better to train in difficult conditions because that simulates competition. So I'm not everybody, listen, not everybody has the courage to post their sets out there and when they're at the bottom half of their range. So I applaud you. But
Yeah.
so what I would like to do is I'm going to ask you some leading questions, and I've never seen you play, and I don't really know your game too well. So when you look at this rack, we're going to keep this to no more than a minute or two before the rack because we got to keep these playing. But my question is, what is the hard part of this rack? You got to run these in order. What do you think of when you see this? What do you think is the difficult part, and what do you think is the right? What's your plan to deal with that difficulty?
Yeah, to me, looking at this, I was starting to just center in on how powerful it is to have center table position on a lot of these balls to create an angle that's moving you to the next one. I just personally, I am comfortable with inside more than it seems like my peers are. So if I look at the 2 ball, I might be more comfortable going at that with like a high inside ball to stay above the 3 than I would to pull away from the 2 ball and come out 2 rails. As far as the toughest transition, maybe it's the 8 to the 9. If you're going short side on the 9, it's not that complicated because it's not a lot of travel. But 5's close to the 7, 6 went in on the break. The 4 is close to the 5. As long as you get above the 4, and by above I mean kind of to the head of the table and the bottom of the screen, then you're pretty much always going to get into a good area for the 5. The 1 to the 2, there's some cue ball travel, but it's nothing too crazy. So I didn't really see any kind of red flags necessarily.
Okay, so when I look at this, if something was going to go wrong, yeah, there's a lot of travel. The 1 to the 2, there's movement. The 2 to the 3, there's movement. The 3 to the 4, not so much with the 4 to the 5, but then the 7 to the 8 and the 8 to the 9.
Yeah.
But here's what I see is I think it's not so automatic to get on the good side of the 4 ball. And so if you look, if the 8 ball wasn't there, then it wouldn't be hard to get an angle to just shoot the 2, follow 1 rail up near the 9 and get full on the 2 on the 3 to where you can kind of pull back and get straight in or slightly past straight on the 4. But with the 8 ball there, whether you come 1 or 2 rails around, the cue ball is going to be kind of wanting to go almost more towards the middle of the table where you're going to have a half ball hit angle on the 3 or even a little bit more. And if you end up, say, in the very center of the table, that's touchy because if you try to draw it back with low outside to get on the good side of the 4, it could easily come cross table or you can overhit it. But on the other hand, if you decelerate or something, you could end up on the wrong side. And if you end up on the wrong side of the 4 running into the 7 ball, things can get funny. So I'm looking to see what I would like to do is do everything I could shooting from the 2 to the 3 to get as full on the 3 as possible. And one thing you could do is even take a little distance, come off the end rail and get a little further up table to get real full on that 3 so that you can draw it on back. But if not, I'm interested to see how you handle it.
Yeah.
You might end up having to like hook draw 2 rails around with low outside from the 4 to 5. Anyway, go ahead and roll it. But that's, to me, that I think is most, I would say 80% of the rack is getting the right angle on the 3 and getting
3 to the 4
reasonable
transition. That makes a lot of sense.
That to me, that really stands out to me. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember.
And if it was a bar, yeah.
Yeah. If it was a bar table, yeah. What were you going to say?
Maybe you could sometimes play for the 4 in the corner if it was a bar table, follow around off the 3 or something. But on this table, I would not want to be playing.
The 4 might go in the bottom right, but yeah, getting there for the.
But it's just.
Yeah.
It's just too hard. It's just too hard to make.
I think I go kind of conservative, make sure I'm reaching this, and try to get close to center table on the 2 ball. Maybe get.
So it got set up a little thick, but I think you're okay here. I think you're okay.
Yep. So I think probably just a high ball to check it a little bit, stay above the 3, get an angle. Yeah, coming out 1 rail is kind of tough unless I really do get into the center of the table, but that's kind of a big stroke. You're asking a lot of the cue ball at that point.
this is ideal. So let's see if you got pretty good on this 3 ball, but you can see this is where I was saying I wouldn't have minded coming another foot even, because then you're even a little thicker on the 3, which makes it easier to come back. But this is nothing wrong with what you did. I just think this is touchy. But you're on, is this fairly new cloth? That makes it a lot easier to suck it back.
Yeah, this is 3-4 weeks ago, and I don't get a chance to play too much. So it's still kind of slidey. You can even see on that 3 ball, so it slid in a little bit.
Yeah, and you did real well with that. So, yeah, I think so far, I think you've handled it perfect. I think the new cloth really helps. On worn cloth, where you have to stroke the ball to get it to come back, it can be a little bit.
These are 4 1/4. Yeah. When I first got the table, it was all like really worn, because I got it secondhand, really worn in, and the pockets would not accept the ball like this.
Well, so far you've played this great. Now this is just a hard shot. I know when people are watching on the screen, they're just like, "Oh yeah, just shoot it in the corner." But you're on a 9-foot table.
No, you got
pockets.
Yeah.
If you catch the rail, if you hit this a little rough, these balls don't always have to go.
Yeah.
That's a good shot.
So I think that was the thing. Just keep it conservative. Like, I don't need to move the cue ball too much from here. And now this is where I kind of give my head wave a little bit, because I'm sort of on the 50. Like, do you play short side on the 9, or do I try to stun out?
I think you've got a little angle on the 7. I think I would float it back a foot or two and end up kind of like near even with the 8, or approaching even with the 8 out in front of the side pocket, and just play for the 2 rails around, just because I want to get a little close.
Interesting.
If I could get close to the 8 shorts playing for short side, I just don't want to be. This is a long way. I don't want to be this long where I have to use inside from distance. I would rather be a little closer, but anyway, it's reasonable. I think you need some inside to get on the 9.
I do, and that's what I mentioned it, because that's just like my favorite tool. It's probably a weakness in my game that I like overly favor the inside ball here, but yeah, because I'm gonna try to get above the 9, and I have to like stiff it to warp it back over. Which, like, cool, you made a good shot, but that's probably, you're asking a little too much in the long run.
Yeah, had you drawn back and got a little bit closer to the 8 with a bigger angle, I think it's real natural to come around. But I think that, that's just, and that happens.
Tried to miss that too.
So it's a little preference, but I think in the end, I talked to my guys about sidewalks, balance beams, and tight ropes. Basically, I break everything into 3 buckets, sidewalks being 95%, balance beams being 75%, and tight ropes being 50-50. And I try to count I don't judge runs by pass fail if they ran out or not. I look at how many sidewalks and how many balance beams did we create, and how many tight ropes we created. Right. And in my world, having to shoot the 8 ball with distance, with power, with inside, I feel like that's a 75%er. I think 1 in 4 times you're either going to miss it or come up short on the 9.
Right.
And so I felt like that was a 1 balance beam downgrade. And had you sucked it closer to the 8 for a bigger angle, I think that would have been better. But okay,
a little more approachable, yeah.
But there's also preference and everything. But go ahead and
that
pause
video,
it
guys.
here.
There's one on his channel about that idea, like why good players don't become great kind of thing, and that was actually part of what turned me on to, like, maybe I want to look at the boot camp. Maybe I want to really consider this. So I'll throw up a card
go ahead
here.
And pause it here.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I really enjoyed that video, and part 2 is now on our group, by the way.
Oh, nice. But nice. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to check it out.
Oh, the second part. I'm okay. Here's a little plug. It's in our Patreon group. I think it's an hour and 12-minute video, and I think it might be the best video on 9 ball ever made. Okay, there it is. I said it. Okay.
Wow.
Let's see. Does that 1 ball go anywhere?
It does actually go in the top right. I think I remember this because I agonized over it for a minute, and I was like, man, not only is it sort of gross that it's clustered down there, it barely goes, but then I don't know if I can guarantee a great shot on the 2. I'm going to let it roll a little bit, Demetrius, because I don't remember how long I look at this, but assuming that it only goes in the top right, because I didn't like the combo on the 1-6, and you're playing the ghost, so like you got to go. You can't just like play a smart safe.
Can you rewind and just show me the break again? How did we end up with this? I'm sorry. I want to see, because we've got a template rack. So when we've got a template rack, I just feel like we shouldn't have 5 balls in the rack area. So what happened on this break shot?
I think I just hit it too thin. I want to look. I remember not like feeling like I was hitting the balls well on the break.
Understood.
A little too thin on the right side, and then they the 1 ball kicked back.
Off,
And the
yeah, the
six
one
ball
came
came
off
all
the
the way in.
point, the
Yeah.
six bounced off the end rail. So it was a little hard luck that the 1-6 ended up back there. But then at the same time, it was a cut break where the 4-9-8 didn't really open.
Yeah.
So when you've got a template rack, I would, if you're playing this format, especially with the Ghost, it's just imperative that you spread the balls well. And if you're giving yourself fugly openings, then it's like that's a serious problem.
Right. Right.
And I'd rather have 50% power and make the wing ball and spread everything apart
Yeah.
nicely
Right.
than hit hard and lose the cue ball and end up with a cluster. That's
Sure.
just if you're playing Ghost challenges or even in competition. But okay. Sorry,
Yeah. No,
I
that's a
was
good tip. That's a good tip.
here. Because like a lot of times it's the same thing with position. People get into hard spots and then they end up with a hard spot and a hard decision and then they missed a shot. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, I wonder what I could have done there. And I always want to go back a shot before. Like, well, how do we even
How
get
did
there?
you
know
get
what I
there in
mean?
the first place? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the one goes in the top right. I know that it does for sure, but it's not friendly. You got to kind of glance off the one. Am I going to end up hitting the 4? Do I have to spin out? Do I have to accept a shot on the 2, like a bigger shot on the 2? You don't really want to like snip draw this one ball and then play the 2 in the bottom right. I felt like I really wanted to get on the 2 in the right side. The 2 in the right side naturally connects to the 3 in the left side. The 4 is right there by the 1, and if assuming that doesn't get moved by this one ball shot, probably the biggest transition here, the 4 to the 5 could be touchy depending on where the cue ball is after the 3, and then the 5 to the 6 might not be great if you don't get good from the 4 to the 5. So seems tough.
I think that, go ahead and roll it. Like, it's hard. So I like to really think about the rack once I'm in control of the table. So once I've got a shot that I like and I know I can get on the next ball, I feel like I'm in control of the table. So normally that's at the beginning of the rack when you have ball in hand.
Yeah.
But here, if the one's tough and it's hard to make the 1 and hard to get on the 2,
It just
then I
didn't
don't
feel
really
good,
worry
yeah.
about the rest of the rack yet. Like, let's just make the 1, get on the 2, figure it out. And then
Yeah.
once we're solidly on the 3, then we can look at, because you might end up moving the 4 or something anyway. So I don't really worry about the rest of the rack until I have control of it. I kind of break the game up into 2 phases. Get control of the table, convert. Generate
Right,
scoring
right,
opportunities, try to convert.
Mm.
We don't even have a real scoring opportunity until you get yourself in control of the table. So let's see.
I end up trying to get above the 2 instead of
Okay.
holding it for the side. Yeah, okay.
That makes sense to me. So now I see what you're saying. You can let it roll. I think you're dead on. I would imagine that what we need to do is try to get straight on the 3,
Yeah.
try to pull back towards the middle. And then when you cut the 4, you're probably going to try to like run into the 8 and just take distance on the 5. But at
Yeah.
least then you've got a long shot with the 5's near the corner. You've got a little angle.
And if I'm
So,
on your
to
side of
me,
the
that's
5,
what-
kind of the left side of the 5, it takes me back around for the 6.
That's exactly right. So I'd rather keep it calm, get an angle on the 4, just try to make the 4, go all out there because it's going to be a hard shot, and then just try to make it, and then accept that distance isn't a killer as long as you have a good angle and
Yeah.
you simplify what you're asking yourself to do on the 4 ball. So this is not easy though because you got to draw back across the line of position to a
Yeah.
point. So this is definitely a balance beam. This is not a guaranteed. This is not routine because if you draw it, even with the 4, then it's a real tester. But if you don't pull it back, you're hooked. So
Is this?
And you
I
didn't do
gotta
anything
pause
wrong.
it,
It's
though.
just- this is-
Is there a way to make this a sidewalk? Like, did I have an option from the 2 to
No.
the 3? There, you didn't,
No,
right? You just have to
no.
accept it. Yeah.
No, there was no way to. There was even with ball in hand of the 3, you'd probably just shoot a draw shot. So it's like really, this is just what you had
It's
to deal
just-
with.
yeah.
I would call it a table created balance beam. Then I don't
Okay,
really
okay.
penalize people. The only thing I would penalize you for is the break.
Right.
You know,
Right.
but like, why did we even get to this? But okay, this is. I mean, you could have placed it better with your hand. And now I like just stunning right at the 8.
The cut
Um,
just
I
yeah.
s- because if you try to draw it above the 8, you have to hit a little harder, and you might end up. I'd rather just stun it right at the 8 and just try to replace the 8 ball. I'd only bump it like a foot. You know what I mean? And just kind
Yeah.
of bump the 8 a few inches. I would just try to bump the 8 a few inches and
I think I
take
try
that
to.
long shot.
I think I try to stay away from it. I see what you mean of just rolling into the 8. You're always going to land on the 5.
or soft stun. It might still be a slide, but if you draw it, it's not bad. But
Yeah.
this is fine. But the only thing about this is, it's actually, if you think about kicking the 8 towards the hole a little bit, it might make it easier to get on the 8 later.
Mm.
But whatever. I think you're totally fine here. And this is natural, right? High ball. You don't really need outside, maybe a quarter tip outside, and you go
Right.
2 rails right at the 6.
Just
This is
sort of
ideal.
encourage it. Yeah, I guess with the running into the 8, I would worry about getting too full on the 5 from down there.
I see.
Then you're too
Yeah, you might
flat
end up
on
having
it
to
with
go one
distance.
rail.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is good. Where you got is really good. I like it. I see what you're saying. Nothing wrong with this, and this is perfect. Yeah.
That should
Well,
be
so
right in the
far, so
line.
perfect.
Either
Yeah.
I might be too flat. I might have to like slightly cross the line, so I have to go short side on the 8 maybe, but I mean that's
Yeah, but I
fine.
mean, from where you were, you're like dancing in the streets. This is so far. This is everything you're doing is like looking really, really good. You're
Okay.
pocketing well. Your rhythm, your fundamentals look good. Your that shot right there shows a lot. Like when somebody uses a high outside two railer and knows how to get close to the side without risking the
Yeah.
scratch. Like a lot of people, they don't feel comfortable with that path.
Right.
So
I
so
felt like I
far everything
overhit
looks
that
well.
one. I think I tapped the table. Like I felt like I overhit it, but it worked out okay.
Well, you're in stroke when you feel like you overhit the ball and it goes an inch too
Yeah,
far.
right.
And you're like,
That's right. Right.
you shoot it like, oh no, it's like
Yeah.
I crushed it, and then it goes like an inch. You're like, okay, it's not bad. Yeah, this is great.
Getting there. There's something
Yeah, I
too
like it.
with Ghost. Like I'll see that okay, I'm coming out of the gate pretty strong. Like this feels like my A game. I just have to maintain, but then even that thought or that like metacognition, that awareness can throw me off.
The pressure builds, man. When you have, it's like a big run in straight pool. You know what I mean? You start seeing 100
Yeah.
approaching, and you're like,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
Think of how Jason Shaw felt when he was hitting
That
that
830,
world
yeah,
championship
man.
record.
See if I hit these any better. Okay.
Oh, that's perfect.
Hit it fuller.
All right, go ahead and pause it.
Yeah, it's a good thing I get ball in hand from here.
Yeah.
The 5's unfriendly. Nobody likes that spot on a pool table, right? Getting from the getting on the good side of the 3 to go to the 4. I kind of like sort of the line where the cue ball is now to go from the 3 to the 4, instead of trying to go to the 8 ball side. So I probably just center table, play the 1 ball to float down, play the zone between the 7 and the 9. If I stay above the 3, that's great. Move angle, probably just 1 rail move angles on the 1 and the 3. 4 goes in the bottom right, but that's the transition from the 4 to the 5 kind of bugs me out. Like I don't see a sidewalky way, to use your terminology. I don't think I see a sidewalky way to get from the 4 to the 5.
Yeah, so once you're on the 5 ball, you can shoot and stop, and then the 7, 8, 9 are open. I'm not saying they're automatic, but the rack is mostly done. So the 1, 3, 4, 5 is definitely the crux.
Yeah.
I like so what I would say about the 1 to the 3. You're talking about a 1 rail path from the 1 to the 3, but the problem is you're really crossing your line where you could be, if you're out in front of the side, you're a little bit thin, but then if you go too far, you're tangling with the 7 or getting too straight. And if you get straight on the 3, so when possible, this is important. When possible, I like to control my angle. So if you want an angle on the 3 ball, I would like to put the cue ball right now, not in the very middle of the table, but a little bit, maybe on the line from where the 7 ball is, and then cut the 1 in the corner, and you can follow 2 rails off the second rail using the same shot you used on the 5 ball last rack. You can come off the end rail, side rail, and then you're coming from like the 3rd diamond right towards the 3 where you've always got a good angle.
Right.
And I really think that that's the right way to play. So the 2 rail route from the 1 to the 3 guarantees you a good angle on the 3. Then from the 3 to the 4, this is an exception case. There is no reasonable way to play the 3 to the 4 that guarantees a good angle on the 5. And I do think you're right. I think what you want to do is go 1 rail, float past the 9 ball so you're not hooked, and then stay fairly full on the 4 where you've at least got a good shot at it.
Yeah.
And then you can, hopefully you're not dead straight, and hopefully you can either follow 1 or 2 rails from the 4 to the 8, 5, coming either
Right.
near the 8 or around where, So I want to say go ahead and roll it. But I think that this is when I get into the part 3, that 9 ball series, you've seen part 1, watch part 2, and I'm about to record part 3. And I'm going to talk about exception cases, which is there's times you can't control the angles. And on the 4 ball, when you can't control the angle, what you should do is get a really good shot where you at least know you have a good shot. And then if you have to work your ball a little bit and recover, that's just what you have to do.
That makes a lot of sense, because you don't want to strive for perfect where a perfect case doesn't even exist. You're putting way too much pressure on that. At least getting a shot. There
is no way to guarantee a good angle. So here's the way I say it. Ideally, I'd like to have a good angle, even if that means a little bit harder shot.
Yeah. Right.
But if I can't guarantee a good angle,
You need it. You at least need the shot. Yeah.
then let's guarantee a good shot and risk the angle.
Yeah.
Because what I don't want is a hard angle and a hard shot. One of them's got to be good. So normally, give me a good angle. But if I can't guarantee a good angle, let's at least guarantee a good shot, and then I can work my ball if I need to. Yep.
I think I was looking at playing the one in the left side to follow into the long rail and into the line of the 3.
Yeah, so there's 3 ways to have the cue ball hit the 3rd diamond. This way, following it at the side, or doing what I said. The reason I like what I said is if you think about the path that the cue ball's following on, this one's coming off the rail cross table, whereas coming 2 rails, it's coming off the rail up table. So you're not gonna. I feel like it, but this table is new cloth and it lengthened out really well. So what you did there, it looked very, very calm at what you just did. I got no problem with that.
Yeah.
But it's the difference between coming into the side rail
and I'm crossing it now. Yeah, and I just pointed at the 9 because I feel like if I try to go 1 rail back up at this, I either have to fight it with outside to get closer to the, between the 7, like the left side of the 9, or like force follow with inside to.
Nah, this is just nowhere. A high ball with a tip of left. You need a high with a tip of left. But on new cloth, it's scary because the left doesn't check as much. But on new cloth, the follow, it slides the tangent line a little bit more on new cloth. So it might actually help that it's newer cloth.
And I underhit it too, so I didn't let the spin take.
Yeah. Okay, that happens. It's a touchy shot.
I think I try to jump at this, so I'm just gonna.
No problem.
Yeah,
this was definitely a difficult situation, but mistakes happen. And one thing though I talked about, and you'll hear me say this in the Patreon group a lot, one reason that might have played a role is that when people follow on that was a very thick hit. It wasn't a half ball hit angle, it was a very thick hit.
Yeah.
And when you think about that, the object ball is taking all your speed. So when you see those thick hits, people under follow those quite often. And we could just say, oh, it's a mistake, it happens. But just in your mind, watch how often when people have thick hit follow shots like that where they come up short. And if you see it, I see it hundreds of times a month. And after a while, I'm just like, yep, thick hits, people are going to follow short. And you really have to recognize like, okay, this is going to take a long swing with a good follow through to get this ball to move. Yeah, but yep, no problem. Okay, cut a little bit, but we got a good spread. Well, no, we didn't get that good of a spread.
The 2 kind of went out and came back in, and the force clustered
again. Yeah, let's
again.
look at that break one more time. Like if we had a money game where you're going to be gambling against a ghost, like the first thing, after watching you play, I'd be like, bro,
work on your break.
you play great. We got to get you better opportunities than this. Yeah. This doesn't scale. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was just killing me. That's true. Now that I'm thinking about just like where probably the biggest weaknesses were, it was just that the racks were too hard. They were just too clustered.
Yeah, I mean this is just a crazy avalanche of hard shots right now.
Like how are you supposed to get good on the 2 to take you to the 3?
I don't even want to pause this because I just don't like. I feel like the rack is already lost.
Yeah.
Now I think. Like, what are you gonna do? Follow to the left side rail, thin cut the 2, go 4 rails around the table? Like, I don't even understand.
I think I would play for the gap between the 3 and the 9, basically, to back cut the 2 and go 2 rails around the 5 and the 3.
Right. Or if you get too thin, you might even have to go 4. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But probably,
I don't know how to do that.
Rails.
I wouldn't even think to do that.
Yeah.
That's lacking for me. So I don't even think to play that.
But you're probably looking at a 2 rail. Yeah, you're probably looking at 2 rails. But what this means is you've got a kind of you're playing shape for a balance beam shot on the 2, and then it's going to be a balance beam to get on the 3. Like it's like, but this isn't it's like you didn't play yourself out of line as far as like you didn't lose your 2 ball. You just didn't get the rack open. Right. You created. So when you break the balls, let's just suppose you had to look at it and say, how many balance beams and tight ropes just to get through this rack, even with best play? And usually you can break it to where it's either all sidewalk or maybe 1 balance beam. But in this case, even with best play, there was going to be a lot of work to be done. And the reason you missed ball in hand was because you're discouraged about the difficulty that lies ahead, and you're so worried about the 2 ball. Yeah. So let's see the next break. Like this, we just got to get better scoring opportunities. Okay, no problem. Because, with the template rack, everybody, the wing ball is guaranteed to go in if you hit it square, and the balls will spread. And so you're going to have, at worst, you're going to have 8 spread open balls.
Yeah.
And maybe make another one. You might have 7 or 8 balls that are all floated apart. And you can do that with 50% power. So adding power does not help if it's not helping.
I think that might have been a cascading effect. So I hit him a little more square this time. Spread out a little better. As long as the 4-5 doesn't get funny.
Yeah, the 4-5 did get tangled.
So I hit him better, but I think that was probably a process throughout the night where I was getting frustrated with the layouts, and so I was adding that frustration into the pace of my break shot, and that was like diminishing returns. The one with the two is not a cakewalk for me.
No. So let's go ahead and pause it real quick. Last night we did a Q&A call with our training group, and I'll post that today for everyone to play back. But one of the things we were talking about was when somebody hooks you and they get lucky and hook you. When people get frustrated, they tend to kick too hard because they're just like, let's just hit it, smash it. And then when people are frustrated, they overhit the ball, and then they sometimes put unwanted spin and airball the thing. And it takes discipline to like, same thing with the break. You can get frustrated. Okay. Yeah. So the 1 to the 2, does the 4 pass the 8, do you think?
I think the 4 goes in the bottom left, yeah.
Okay. So there is really no super great path. I don't see anything better than following it in the top right corner, just following it up table, shooting it in the top right, trying to follow up short side. I don't really see anything better. If you could shoot it in the left-hand side like you tried last time and try to follow between the 9-7, but then you're kind of, man, you got to get the right angle.
Maybe you go the 1 in the left side and the cue ball above the 4 so that you're going into the long rail and like coming off the rail into the line of the 2. But even then, you're going to be pretty thin on the 2 to where it's hard to hold it for the 4 in the bottom left.
That's a tight gap to hit. Let's see what you do here. Let's just roll it because, again, I almost don't feel like you're really in control of the table until you get on the 2 ball with an angle.
I did go top left.
I see what you're doing here. This is a scary shot for me because if you shoot at the top right, it can, with the new cloth, it can wobble in. But here, to me, this is definitely a balance beam shot out of the gate.
Yeah.
This is hard. This is a hard shot. I would be scared to take this out.
These are funny. I end up feeling really comfortable about these, but I feel like my speed gets away from me. But I did like the Billiards University fundamentals or something a few years ago, and it was this sort of along the long rail, you have to do your follow shot position for specific areas. And that one just felt kind of like naturally more approachable to me.
Well, that tells me a lot about your striking because that takes very, very good striking. So it's one of those things where if your striking's really good, you can be like, oh, you just shoot it in. But it's like, you also, because of the fullness of the hit, it takes a good speed. So you can't finesse it. You have to like stroke that ball in. And anyway, as it turns out, you got a little unfortunate to be back cutting this ball. And now there's really no way to get on the 4.
Yeah.
Now it's like, we're looking at some weird trick shot
4-7
kicking
combination.
At the 4-5 combo. Yeah. So, and all of this because the break, and it's just, it's a lot of times people ask like, what do you do here? And it's just like, well, we try to minimize the number of times we get in the spot. And
right.
There was nothing you could have done after the break. You hit a good shot.
Right. The 4-5 combo is interesting. That's not something that I would normally look at, but kicking into that makes a lot of sense because it might not be wired, but it's probably pretty forgiving.
Or maybe it goes cross-side, and I don't know. I don't know what you're dealing with here.
I think I was just trying to get... I could have probably held it instead of going past the 8 here. That was probably just frustration.
No, I get it. I'd be frustrated too.
Yeah.
The one thing, though, that remember is that you missed the 1 ball with ball in hand last time because you were kind of discouraged about the work ahead. And then, I get it too. I've played a lot of ghosts, and I get it. You start feeling a little victimized, and it's not fair. Why am I having to deal with this? The one thing I'd say, and a great player told me this a long time ago, so I'll share it with you. When you have a rack that you're not excited about, it's very common to make a mistake early in the rack because you're pessimistic about the late part of the rack. And so, like, say you've got a table run where the 7 ball is going to be tough no matter what you do. It's in a really bad spot, and it's always going to be hard to make the 7 down the rail, and it is not going to lead to the 8. And you're like, man, I don't even know if I can make the 7. And so then you're discouraged, and you make a mistake early, and now you never even know what you would have done. And a similar thing comes up if you're playing in a match where there's no way to make the 7s. You're going to have to make the hard 1 ball and make a tough run just to get to the 7. And best case scenario, you play a safety, and it's hard to get on the safety, and it's not 100% guaranteed lockup anyway. And you're like, man, all this work, and I don't really like, and then you end up missing.
Yeah.
And then your opponent runs up to the 7 and buries you with a good safety. And you're like, well, why didn't I do that? And so this player told me once, you have to promise yourself that if you get to the late stage of the rack and if you get to that problem, like that's the win. Like just you have to like get excited about the part. You can't be pessimistic about the second half of the rack, or you won't even get to the second half of the rack. And in poker, they call it realizing your equity, making sure that you realize all your equity. So basically, even if you're 50-50 to deal with that situation, 50-50 a few times adds up compared to zero.
Right.
And so if every time you're 50-50, you get discouraged and just miss the one ball, well, then it's like, man, let's give ourselves those swings. And so I'm not saying that's what happened. You can go ahead and roll it. I'm just kind of rambling while you're racking here. But yeah. I think that's what happened on that one ball that got missed, is you were kind of pessimistic about the rack.
Yeah.
And the same thing there, like you just kind of played your cue ball and didn't even have anything from there. Whereas if you could have given yourself the highest percentage, even if it was still low percentage, those percentages add up. Yep.
Yeah. It's great advice, and I think it mitigates the pressure when you shorten, the goalpost is a little closer. Right, like it's a little more forgiving, and it's like my target's closer. I don't have to do quite as much as I think I do, and then it's more of a positive 100%. Feedback loop, right? You're giving yourself credit for the things that are working out instead of creating monsters that you haven't even faced yet. Feeling discouraged.
Yeah, I think on that one rack, I would have told myself, if I could just make the one, get on the two with an angle, and then make the two and get around the three, I promise I'll win the game from there.
Yeah,
like if you just kind of like talk yourself into thinking that that's an achievement. Okay,
right.
Let's go ahead and pause it real quick and tell me. I see you're going to follow over to the left side rail. How do you see like the 2 to the 3? What's your plan from the 2 to the 3?
If I can get full on the 2 is tough, because then you're having to cheat the pocket to kind of create an angle. But to me, there's a big window between the 6 and the 7, or between the 6 and the 9, depending on where I go. If this is probably an example of that closer goalpost, if I get on the 3, I'll probably be pretty happy with making it through the 1 and the 2, because they're sort of weird. So I think I'm maybe in a short-sighted way just thinking like I need to get pretty good on the 2 so that I can have a shot on the 3. I would be willing to accept a longer shot on the 3. Problem is, if you're on the left side of the shot line on the 3, then you can't really get over for the 5. So I do have to be on the 6 ball side of the 3. Yeah.
If you're long and flat on the 3, like if you're shooting from near, like anywhere between where the 6-9 is, but at 2 flat to pass the 7, like I would not want to be shooting from directly between the 6-9 where you're long and flat on the 3 and try to pound it over, hopefully get past the 7. So the question is, I think that if you can lay this ball on the left-hand side rail, and then shoot the 2 in with a half ball hit with no spin, the cue ball is going to go one rail and towards the right-hand side. And you want to drift right to where, if you look at where you're between the 6-3, like where your cue is, like in front of the side between the 6-3. So when you shoot the 2 ball, I'd want to be I'd want to be as close to the left side rail as I can. B, I'd want to use it exactly a half ball hit. And then 3, or C, I'd want to be coming all the way across the shot line. I would not want to stop on the head spot. I would want to make sure I got past the 3rd diamond line. In my mind, if you're anything further than the 3rd diamond line from the end rail, something went wrong. So let's go ahead and see it. Let's see if you can.
Right, that guarantees that kind of move angle on the 3.
Yeah, I really think getting to the 3rd diamond with an angle on the 3 is the game. I think that's the game. And so, and that hinges on getting really close here. So here you're 4 inches off the rail. I can live with that.
Still okay.
And now, it did bump the 3 a little, but that's okay. But now, let's see if you can get all the way to the 3rd diamond. The problem with bumping it is, if you think about where it bumped to, it actually pushed it to where
made it harder to get from the 3 to the 5. Yeah.
It really got harder. And this, but that's okay. Let's see what you do.
Yeah, getting out.
Now with a half ball hit, you might need the slightest hair of outside, like a quarter tip of right.
Right, to get it to cross the line. Do you ever think about going past the 6? Like trying to...
No, because the problem with that is I might end up with a long, difficult back cut. And what happens is the make percentage on my shot becomes more difficult than the position would be from here. And so I trust my cue ball enough to know that I'm not going to put it where you just put it.
Yeah.
Maybe a hard time.
No, I think and this is the crux, like we talked about. This is the defining moment of the rack, and getting closer to the 6. Not that I want to have to back cut the 3, but knowing that it's guaranteed position to go from the 3 to the 5 kind of mitigates the intimidation of the shot.
And we're not going to rewind it, but what I will tell you is this. Bumping the 3 made it harder to get an angle. The other thing is that it impacted your speed control, and that if you could lay it on the rail, like if you can get really close to the left side rail, when you have a hanging ball, and you're on the rail, on the left-hand side rail, you can shoot a half ball hit and the cue ball path automatically takes you one rail cross side, like to the right-hand side pocket.
Right.
And that's a really good reference point, because then on a shot like that, you could just follow over to the left-hand side rail, shoot a half ball hit, follow one rail, and just drift all the way to the third diamond line. And it's just, yeah, it's a really good way to guarantee an angle. But okay, I've made my point, and we see how that played out.
We see the result. Yeah.
Because you shoot, you shoot straight. We just have to. Okay.
All right. Now I'm feeling it, Demetrius. At this point, I'm probably pissed.
Well, and it's partly it's these breaks, because even that last break, and here you didn't make the wing ball because you didn't hit him square. So now we've got a 9-ball run instead of an 8-ball run, and this is a tough run. Go ahead and pause it.
Yeah,
I'm getting into this set now.
3 to the 4. The 1 to the 2. If I get into the center of the table, that takes me across. But am I trying to get, like 5-ball, close to the 5-ball position on the 3 to slide over for the 4? And it's a lot of kind of sliding across. That looks natural to me, but it is a lot of travel. I just don't see like a back cut on the 2 being any better than that. Yeah.
So when you look at this, there's a lot of transitions. I mean, the 1 to the 2, 2 to the 3, 3 to the 4, 4 to the 5, 5 to the 6.
5 to the 6 is huge.
That's probably the hardest one. And what makes it worse is not only is the 5 to the 6 a tough transition, but the 4 to the 5, you're going to be coming across the line where it's going to be hard to control what angle you get on the 6.
Yeah.
So, and then you say, okay, well, I'm going to be coming across the line from the 4 to the 5. So I want to get as good of the 4 as I can to really maximize my chances. But then if you look at the shots leading up to the 4-ball, it's a zigzag. It's like a weird drill.
Yeah.
So go ahead and roll it. I think we know what we need to do. I think you understand you need to be in the middle of the table and have a big angle on the 2.
Right.
When I shoot the 2, I don't worry about the angle on the 3. The same thing I said before. I have to guarantee myself a good shot at the 3. And coming across the line of position from the 2 to the 3, I can't control and give myself a good angle without risking getting too thin. So from the 2 to the 3, I would actually play it all the way across and maybe even bump the second rail around the third diamond by where you're standing, or something. But I want to make sure I have a good shot at the 3. And then if I get straight on the 3 and I happen to be a little straight on the straight on the 4, I can work it out from there. But like, this is tough, man. This is definitely tough. And that 5 to the 6, you're probably going to end up accepting a real thin cut. I don't see working the cue ball to get above the 9. I see settling for the middle of the table on the 6 and thinning it in. That's what I'm looking. Oh boy, we already messed up here. Okay.
I think I have some words with myself here I can't hear my own audio, but I think I talked to myself at the table like, you needed an angle on this ball. Like, why are we staying straight on it?
Go back and show me how you hit the 1 again. I just took it for granted that you were going to get to the middle. Can you show me how you hit the 1? I don't know what just happened.
It should be granted that I get to the middle with ball in hand, but yeah,
go back. Okay, so here's what you did.
Pretty straight on
Time out. So time out. Pause it real quick. So what we do, and there's a video in our Patreon group with a guy named Zach Robbins, Zach from New York. I've gotten to really enjoy Zach. Anyway, he showed me a video. We reviewed a ghost video, and he had the same thing come up, and something similar happened. And what I told him was, we want to use move angles to move, because draw is not as good of a way to move the cue ball. And if you had set the cue ball up on the line from the 7-ball and just used high center and rolled it one rail to the middle, you just never, ever, ever have something bad happen. But what you're doing is you're using draw across the line of position. So you're using a worse cue ball control maneuver and crossing the line a little bit more, coming straight back. Whereas if you use the high center, cutting it in and coming one rail with follow to the middle, you're actually playing the line a little bit better and using it better to control gun. And so those little nuances come up. I think you should have used a move angle. Okay, keep rolling it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to cut it from that line of the 7. Yeah, let me jump ahead because I know that I end up. I think this is like cautionary tale. I'm pretty sure you've even said the exact thing. Like, you may be able to, draw the ball the full length of the table, but you should never have to, kind of thing. Buckle up, everybody.
I'd be playing for the bank, because even if you draw table length, there's no guarantee you're going to get a better shot than the bank anyway.
Yeah.
So this is an example of where, wow.
I just don't know how to bank, Demetrius, so.
To be fair, on new cloth, that helps. But the way I look at it is, I'd rather be 100% of the time to leave myself a 70% bank than 70% of the time leaving myself an 80% shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah,
Easy
especially
for me to say, but
because,
then again,
well, especially because the bank like is guaranteed to put you where you need to be on the 4, whereas that shot on the 3
well, I
is
mean,
not
yeah.
guaranteed.
But on new cloth, man, with the new cloth and with a stroke like yours, I don't hate the draw shot. That's definitely not.
Yeah.
I mean,
I trust it.
I
Like I
guarantee
know
you.
what I know what I can do with it. I don't want to have to use it, right? But like it's nice to know that it's there. Here's the big transition though, right? Because I have to still get good from the 5 to the 6, and so I have to look at. I've got options getting from the 4 to the 5, but I have to pick a good spot. You don't want to play the 5 on the side, dude. Don't do that. You're gonna embarrass me.
This is another funny one where I don't think I would do this, but you could cinch it for the bank again and leave yourself the angle to come 3 rails and right towards the line from the second diamond to the 6, where you're always on that shot line.
Mm.
Just because it makes the shot, it makes the position. When you think about how tough the position is, the bank shot's not the end of the world, but I would definitely draw back for a shot. I would never accept the bank here.
Oh, we're going all the way
Wow.
down here.
But
Yeah,
now I wish I had that bank.
I know. Yeah, the bank's always going to be friendlier than this.
Yeah, I think you needed to like finesse draw it between the 5 and the side and just bump out and get somewhere on the 5 and trust that you could work it out. It was kind of an exception case where you couldn't control your
Yeah.
angle. It seemed like you were trying to draw it above the side, and then it just took a big stroke. That anyway, I understand that you're just frustrated because you're playing a rack and you're playing the ghost and you started off with a few table runs. But this is a good example of how it's really cool. 9 ball's a momentum game. And when things are going right, you could just surf over a bunch of adversity and run rack after rack like
Yeah.
everything's easy. And then when things go wrong, it feels like nothing can work. And it's interesting to watch how negative momentum plays out. Okay, that's a solid hit, but why didn't the wing ball didn't go, which means the rack might have been suspect. And somehow, okay, this is great though, Anthony, because what we're going to do is we're going to set up a date to do this again in a month.
Yeah.
And your next set is going to be totally different breaking.
Right.
Because
Right.
this, I don't think Josh Filler could beat this ghost break. So
I don't know what's going on with the break, but that's all I'm going to be spending time on.
yeah,
Because
I know that if you break
4 goes, I feel like if you get on the 4, you're kind of okay from there. 2 to the 3.
Agreed.
It's going to be a lot of movement. Yeah.
So here's the funny part: is you can't have an angle on either side of the 2 because the 4 and the 5, you can't be cutting it from the middle of the table. You run into the 5. You can't be cutting it from the other side. You run into the 4. So all there is to get fairly full on the 2 and just kind of stop around there, or pull back a little.
Yeah.
So let's see how full you can get on the 2 ball here. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably what I play
really
for
hard.
is just center table and just, snip it off the 2, which gives you the line on the 3. It gives you the kind of cross table movement from the 3 to the 4.
Yep. And so what's bad is you have to cross your line here, but what's good is you're using a good maneuver and you're accepting a little distance. So I really like the fact that you accept a distance. You're in the wide part of the positional zone. And now you're a little elevated over the 3, which is a little annoying. When you're lost 5 racks in a row, it could be everything's 50% harder than you normally would think it would be. Yeah.
It took some serious emotional regulation to be willing to continue to play at this point.
Oh yeah, my cue sticks would have been Tinderwood by rack 4.
Weird. It's the break. I'm glad we're reviewing it, for nothing else. Like there's a lot coming out of this for me in general, but yeah, the break was so funky and I'm glad to be able to diagnose that.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, that shot you just made, it was really clean. Like I would have definitely been able to miss that ball with the way things are going and being a little awkwardly bridged.
Yeah.
And this shot too, again, if this ball, don't tell me what happens, but if this ball doesn't fall, I would not be shocked. This is a tester. You have to strike these really clean. This one's far enough off the rail, it can't even wobble in. So you really have to hit oh man, you strike super clean, Anthony. You're a beast.
Thank you.
I'm a fan. You've won me as a fan.
Thanks. And I had to like bridge long away from the 6, and I just remember getting down, and there was a little bit of the squiggly like, you're not supposed to win anymore type nonsense. And I've done a lot of work on that in the last couple of years, so like I know how to deal with those guys when they pop up. Because I know that, man, I put so much time into the fundamentals to be able to hit them like that. And if you can just trust that I got to hit this ball, I just want to make it feel good, the sensory input, whatever the thing is that you want to latch onto, you can start to create a positive feedback loop again. I don't think I had a great solution for the 4. I just knew that I needed to hit the 3 well, and yeah, it's
now
tough,
you got to go back and forth. back and forth, and on new cloth, it kills the speed a little bit coming off these rails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the
Oh,
attempt.
were
Is
you
like
trying to use inside?
I was trying to use outside.
Or-
I was trying to use
Oh,
outside, a little bit of outside to try to like hold it on that line and come across
mhm.
and stay above the fives. I think the decision was good, but yeah, the execution wasn't where it needed to be.
Yeah, so you're trying to use like 1130 or something, just kind of twist it with a
Yeah.
little check.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Let's see the break. That was again, even though the balls were a little spread, they were, I mean, I don't know. They just did, they don't look like they're all friendly, floated apart, two balls down, everything sitting in front of a pocket,
Yeah, they're not.
connect the dots. We haven't really seen many breaks like look at this.
Weird.
Yeah. Even here, like the 2 to the 3 to the 4, and then getting up for the 5, back down for the 6, 7,
Yeah.
the 8, crap on the left side rail. These are all super tough racks.
Yeah.
Okay. Pause it real after you get out of the frame here. And what do you see as the key transitions in this rack, or what are the big moments of this rack?
It's nice having the 1 and the 2 close to each other. Feels like it gives you plenty of options. Getting on the right side of the 3 doesn't seem too tough to get from the 4 to the 5. 6 has a big zone. Probably just I don't know, the 2 to the 3, as long as you have a good move angle, like we talked about, kind of that left-hand side of the table, that quadrant to sort of cut that in. You can go 1 or 2 rails to come around.
Where do you want to be on the 2? Where do you want to be on the 2 ball? Show me with your mouse.
Right. I don't think that's going to show up for viewers at home here, but let's do this. So if we want to be, so the shot line on the 3, that's not right. Shot line on the 3 is here ish, and if I want to be straight on the 3, that's too small of a window. So the line from the 2, I just feel like if I get on the 2 and cut it in from here, you can come out right, like close to the shot line, and then at least you're maximizing this, bigger window over here.
Yeah, 100%. So we want to be with a 2 rail angle, kind of like a few racks ago. I talked about playing the 1 ball and playing 2 rails to get on that 3 ball.
Yeah.
This is very similar. I'd want to be like not quite the middle of the table, so I'd shoot the 1 to the left-hand side and follow kind of towards the 6 ball and lay between the 6 and the 2. And then I could follow 2 rails, and I'm very confident that I can get full enough to shoot and stop on the 3. But even if I get a little bit above it, I'm going to be close to the 3 where I can pinch it, or even if I had to draw it to the side rail and back, or follow around, whatever. So let's see how you do that.
Yeah.
And then we'll reassess once you get on the 3 ball.
Yeah, I'm looking at my line.
You could draw it back towards the 6 as well. So the thing about drawing this back towards the 6 is that even if you underdraw it, you're always going to have the angle. So unlike before, if you underdrew it, you're straight on the 2 in the corner. Here, if you underdraw it,
you're
you
always
just might
above
have to
it.
out.
Yeah. I think
because I can understand not wanting to roll this into the side. That's fine. Or you could shoot. You could put the cue ball next to the 5, shoot the 1 in the bottom left, and kind of stun it towards the 6. I like that better than draw. I don't really like drawing the ball.
I might be doing this. I might be going across the. Yeah, because now
the problem is so you're way too full, and now you got to force your ball, and you don't. The 3 ball target is way too small to be using a forceful shot to get on it. So this is this is okay. It's just a big blunder, and it's like hooking yourself. This is almost like hooking yourself, except that instead of hooking yourself now, it's going to be on the 3 or the 4 that you feel the pain.
Yeah, and you just
you try to
work too hard.
That's theory. You're trying to create the angle that you wanted to have that you didn't have.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
All right, I got to mourn that one for a minute.
Yep. Yeah. You can walk that one off. It's okay.
This is my last rack. This is my last chance to do something that looks like pool.
Well, we got a reasonable break. This is the best break I've seen since rack 2. The 2 does not pass the 9.
No.
So how do we get from the 1 to the 2? This is not so easy.
The rules for the 9 combinations, if you felt fancy and you wanted to go for that, would be that the 9 stays down. You get the points for it, but you have to complete the run. You have to finish the table. So it's not like you get 10 points for making the 9. But let me get my body out of the way. So To me, the two ball's the crux, and if I can get below the two for the two in the left side, then
Yep.
generally speaking, I'm out from here. The way things have been
Yes.
going, I don't love my chances. But
Yeah.
I think I also have like
Yeah.
I think I've got it in me to recover, you know. So we'll see how it goes. But that's probably my play, Demetrius, is to just try to get below the two, which is a good amount of movement.
So you got to get the cue ball between the 4-8, kind of in the rack area. So what shot
Yeah.
can you play to get the cue ball in the rack area?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I play. I think I play a shot where I sort of go into the one, use a line like this to get around the 6, and then either come between here, or I use a lot of spin to come out and around because I know that this is my zone.
Okay, so the problem with that is, first of all, it's like you're kind of bringing the 6 into play is scary. Number one. Number two, you're kind of crossing. If you go towards the 8-7, you're crossing your line. So like if you get even with the 2, it's really thin, and if you get running to the 8, it's really bad. I like putting the cue ball in the middle and going the high ball with the high center right from the middle. All you got to do is beat the side.
Right.
Maybe a little thinner than that. Maybe I'm wrong, but like something like that, where all you got to do is go one rail, hit the left-hand side rail by the third diamond. And then you're going 1-2 rails, and then you're going towards the gap between the 4-8. And as long as you don't smash into the 2, which if you know that shot, you can go 1-2 rails, and then the whole way, once you cross the third diamond line, you're just rolling. You got 3.5 feet of space, and you just go 1-2 and drift into the rack area.
Cleaner because there's no blockers, right? That you don't have to worry about running into anything.
And you're actually playing the line of position because you're playing straight away from the 2 in the pocket. You know what I mean? So I was just curious what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah.
Yep. Because I could get on the 2 ball with that shot. Like I'm very confident I could land the cue ball like right where the 9's were at.
Right.
This one here, it's very speed sensitive and it's also tip sensitive because if you catch it too low or if you use too much spin. So this one's a lot more finicky, both in terms of speed and direction, I think. But it's tough. Okay, you hit it well though. You hit it really well. And what I liked is I like the line you chose because you are in the wide part of the positional zone. So
and the line still keeps me on the 4. I think I just have to accept a little bit more of a finicky shot on the 2 because I'm not as far below it. So I probably just try to guarantee that I make the ball not get too greedy, and because I know I need a line from the 4 to the 5. But I'm always going to be like below that line. Yeah. I ended up getting pretty straight on the 4. I got more out of it than I thought I would.
That's fine. The priority there is to make the 2, and you don't want to like miss the 2, and you don't want to leave the cue ball on the side rail.
Yeah.
So at this point, you got to just make the 2, get yourself a good shot. It's new cloth. You got a good stroke. If you have to suck it back,
I think that's probably what I end up doing here is just try to stay on the left side of the 5.
Yeah. I'd probably pull it all the way to the end rail and out just because,
that could have gone wrong in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think you're better off coming all the way to the end rail and out just to make sure you get all the way there and you're in the wider part of the zone. But yeah.
That's interesting because I feel like staying above it, maybe it's always going to end up thinner. Just seems like maybe I'm just choosing to do the wrong thing, but getting below you have the chance of getting below the 5 and having to back cut it where it's too severe of an angle. I don't know.
Well, that's why you go all the way to the rail and out. Yeah, you got to come out. But in the end, I mean, you put yourself where you had to draw the ball, and so then you just got to draw the ball. But okay, you know what? I was also not at the table, and you got there. I just felt that.
Yeah. No, I think your decision is probably better. I'm just saying that like generally that's what I look at, and I don't. It doesn't work out for me because I'm probably just creating the situation that's too hard.
Yeah. Well, little millimeters change, like depending on exactly where you were and exactly where you can draw. Oh man, this is hard. This shot's hard.
Yeah. I could have made it way easier, but it's just going to be like a clutch. I got to just roll this ball in and get above the 8 kind of thing. I remember feeling pretty settled at this point though. Like I didn't get great on the 6, but I felt okay about this.
I'll tell you what, your pocketing this set has been incredible. And considering that you've been frustrated, you've been getting difficult opportunities and momentum's against you, how many balls have you really missed? Like when you think about it, like you've missed some jump shots. You've had some times where you lost a cue ball. You've had some times where you couldn't the table laid where you ended up having some weird combinations.
Yeah.
But like you haven't really struggled to put down open shots, even
Right.
when you're frustrated. And that's impressive, man. If you could show me a bad set and you're still pocketing balls really cleanly, this is kind of inspiring.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a testament to just tons of mental work that I've been doing lately, and then I know that the gaps are in decision making and strategies and lines and this kind of stuff that hopefully you can bring to my game.
Yes.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it's still the kind of set where I like walk away shaking my head.
For sure, for sure. But in the end, pool's a momentum game. And so the funny part about momentum, like just for people that haven't heard this or thought about this, suppose this set here, you ended up winning 3 out of 10 racks, right?
Yeah.
So you lose, let's just say you're keeping score, you'd have lost 7-3. And you'd be like, okay, well, 7-3, if I'm playing a race to 7 against the 9-ball ghost and I lose 7-3, how many mistakes am I away from having won the set? And clearly, if we'd made 2 less mistakes, it would be 5-5. And so, and so then you think, well, maybe I needed 3 to 4 less mistakes and I would have won that set. But the funny part about momentum is a lot of times it's 1 mistake away. Because if you'd made 1 mistake less early and then won a rack and then got ahead, 3-1 instead of 2-2, and so suppose rack 4 you'd won. As is, you lost rack 4 and it went 2-2. But if you'd won rack 4, then you're ahead 3-1 and you're coming off a successful run out. And then maybe your energy is better and you break better, you get more opportunities, and then you win another rack and then things are going good and you come with another shot. And like I've seen so many sets decided where it looks like somebody got beat like 7-3, but really they weren't 4 mistakes away from winning. They might have been 1. Like you might have been 1 run out away from the momentum shifting and everything going in, and you win 7 out of 10 racks.
Yeah.
And so so the first thing I think about is what a great example of how momentum works. You got a bad momentum. So then the question is, why did you get bad momentum? We already beat this horse to death. The break shot was just generating way too many tough opportunities. But then the final part is when momentum's against you, your game breaks down in weird ways. And it's still, even though you could sit there and say, okay, Anthony, let's try to keep momentum and try to get rhythm so that your game is firing on all cylinders. Great. But what breaks when your game isn't firing on cylinders? Where does it break first? And that's an interesting thing to see. And so we already talked about, I'm just kind of recapping, like where does the game break first? The first place, one way it broke was being pessimistic about the challenges coming up in the rack to where we missed the ball in hand on 1 shot and we didn't really have even when you got on the head rail and had a back cut on the 2 and there was no way to get on the 4 because the 4 or 5 were tied up. So you just kind of got frustrated and shot somewhere and then tried something. And I think that just deciding what's my best percentage, let's try to go all out to get there and maximize my best percentage, even if it's a 20% Hail Mary combo. Let's give myself the full 20% instead of just throwing the cue ball up table and then framming the balls and waving my hands. Every percentage matters. So that was one example of a little bit of pessimism affecting your judgment or affecting your focus. And then there was a couple of examples where the wrong lines mattered. And I think that the one on the 1-3 where you ended up bumping the 3 where you needed to follow all the way to the left side rail and then get an angle on the 3. That was one thing that mattered. The one where you had to draw back from the 1 to the 2 and you ended up not drawing back and leaving yourself that power draw instead of playing a follow shot to get an angle and then having an angle. That was one. And then even this last rack where I really liked the 2 rail pass instead of the stun cross table path to get on that 2 on the side. But you got there. But just a few times that angle management came, either the angle. I think you're good enough to know the angle you want. I just think that there might have been ways to either use better maneuvers or better lines to guarantee the angle a little bit better.
Yeah. It's such a gap in my knowledge, and it's something that I've reflected on, especially because of your content that you've put out there, where when I first learned how to play the game, those lessons were lacking for me. It was really about fundamentals, and it was about playing shape, but it was more like pinpoint, like let's get on the shot line kind of shape. It wasn't about what's the zone that moves you into kind of ideal position for the next zone, the next zone, the next zone. And so it's stuff that I've had to retrain,
Yeah.
even just very recently in the last like month or two. I'm having to think about that really differently. So obviously, like, it's unpolished, but it is really inspiring to see, like, man, there's so much room, there's so much overhead room, because the fundamentals are going to be good enough to move the ball where I want it to go, but I have to decide to put it in the right place, like, that optimizes those chances.
Yeah, because no matter how good your fundamentals are, when you're lying straight on the 3 ball and you can't move the cue ball to get on the 5, it's
Yeah.
you're jumping. No, and
Yeah.
at some point it doesn't scale. But here's what I think. The next set, you've got a couple specific things to focus on. So the first thing is the break. Hit it 70% that power and just go for a nice float apart. Don't try to explode the rack. Just try to make the wing ball and smoothly float everything apart so it's all open. That's job 1. Job 2, mentally budget yourself that there's going to be 2 or 3 racks that are going to be really messed up and unfair. And during those racks, I want you to get excited about how tough the rack is. And your goal is not to complete that rack. Your goal is to do the part. So suppose the 1, 2, 3 is reasonable and the 4 to the 5 is going to be a complete disaster no matter how good you play to get there. Treat the 4 like it's your money ball and just say, my game is going to be I want to at least face that. I'm not necessarily going to overcome it, but
Right.
I'm going to get there and
Getting there is a
I'm not
win
going
in
to
and
let
of
that,
itself. Yeah.
I'm not going to let the 4 or 5 cluster bully me off doing my job on the 1 to 3. So first, break the balls better. Second, when you have, but mentally prepare, instead of feeling like you're a victim because the balls are all tied up, mentally budget that there's going to be a few really messed up racks. And when you get those racks, do the part you know how to do to get yourself that swing, to at least give yourself all the equity you can get, and maximize your equity on the messed up racks. And then finally, the other part, as far as playing the patterns and playing the lines, that's what we're going to be working on in our group. That's why we do the pattern of the month review, where we break down the zones and where the zones are and what the lines we choose, and everybody deep dives them. That's where we're just going to work little by little. There is no like quick tip on how to do that. You already know what angles you need. Now it's just a matter of, 1, figuring out what lines get to those angles, and number 2, practicing our cue ball so that we get better and better control. And your cue ball is better than a lot of people's. So like a great example is go back to the very first rack that, or whatever rack where the 5 to the 6, where you had to play that high ball, the high outside 2-railer and come near the side pocket. And not this rack, the next one, I'm sorry. It was the one where I was talking about running into the 8, and you correctly said that might get you full. So go to this 4 to the 5 to the 6 again. And you did great to get here. So this is a great example. Show that 5-ball shot again.
So yeah, staying on the left side of the 5.
Yeah, and so you hit this shot, and you run out, and people that are watching might just be like, "Oh yeah, you just shoot him in." But like first, he had to know how to hit this shot here, and this is I just want to see it. Look at this now. Look at how close to the side he comes. Okay, 3.5 diamonds. And that's what was necessary to get perfect. Okay, you can pause it. That was a rack winner. So when it comes to pattern play, people often say, I need to get better at patterns. But a lot of times they need to get better at their cue ball. Because you can't play good patterns if you don't have the pieces that you need. Like if somebody doesn't know that shot you just hit, if they don't feel comfortable hitting that shot, and they don't know where that shot goes, and they don't know how to control their speed and direction. If that person said, well, how should I play these balls? You can tell them the right pattern, but they can't do it.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's not even the right pattern for them, because if they don't have, so patterns are just the assembly of a bunch of tools and maneuvers that you feel comfortable with. And most people, they need to get better at patterns, but the reason their patterns aren't better is because the tools that they have they're handcuffed by their tools. And I used to say, in some ways, everybody's limited. Everybody plays perfect patterns for their tool set.
Right.
And if their patterns look goofy, it's because they don't have the right tools. So I think that the patterns, yes, we're going to work on patterns, but I think that you have the toolbox. I think we're going to get your cue ball tighter, even tighter. Like you play it good, but we're going to get it even tighter. And then we're going to really carefully be assembling these runs one at a time until it just starts looking, and and you play good. You're a thinking player. You have great fundamentals, great striking, great pocketing, and you know the shots. But if we can know the shots a little bit better and then assemble them a little bit better, then you pick up 1 or 2 extra racks every set, and then that turns the momentum, and then it turns into big results.
Right.
So that's that painstaking path from here on out. Now
That's
we're
awesome,
fighting
man.
over lines
It's
and inches.
it's optimization, right? And that's the kind of thing, like, I have to be realistic about the time that I put in and the sort of results that I want to get out of it, and just that, like, I have a whole life outside of pool, right? And so I can only put so much in. But this, to me, why I was like kind of bought in, wholesale with your program, is because I recognize this as the weakness. That if the time that I put in here is going to get me those results, then I don't need to just be hammering my head against the wall doing the ghost. If I'm not doing it in a way that's making me better, truly, there's diminishing returns on all those other things. And maybe I can do fundamentals to the point where, like, I can do that draw shot to this instead of this, but, like, okay, who cares? I don't need to be doing that if the zones are much bigger and the shots are much easier. So yeah, I bought in, and
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I'm glad to have you in the group. I look forward to it, and it'll be fun to see how your game changes. I think that I already know how you play now, and this is, it's funny. There's another guy that's in our group, Little Chris, who he was like a 616 Fargo 5 years ago, and he just hit 650. And it's funny because he already played well, and he would already beat the 9-ball ghost, and he'd already run tables, and he knew all the shots, and his game looked good. And I feel like, I don't know what can I ask you what your Fargo is today? I haven't even looked at it.
Yeah, it is. It's not really, like, it's technically established, but there's only like 200 some games behind it, so it's like I don't think it's real. It's a 622.
Okay, so it's very funny because I was putting you like really close to where Chris was when he started working with me, which is, how do you teach a guy that already knows how to play, and you already know how to play? And then it's like, but working with Chris, he credits me a lot to get that climb from 620 to 650. And that may not sound like a lot of Fargo points, but that's a 30% improvement.
Yeah.
And at the level you play at, to lift your game 30% by fine tuning a few things.
Yeah.
That's monstrous, because you'd have to practice stroking into a bottle for a lot of years to get 30% better at everything.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man. Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time here, breaking this down. I'm excited about where we go from here. And yeah, viewers, make sure you go check out his channel. All the links are going to be down there. I recommend the Slate Club. You get a lot of value out of that. $20 a month.
Yeah, $20 a month, cancel anytime. It's as close to free as I can make it.
Yeah, check it out. If you don't like it, cancel. But I think there's a lot of really useful stuff in there, and more to come. Demetrius, I'm excited about the stuff coming forward here, the partnership and opportunities, and really appreciate you doing this breakdown with us today.
For sure, we'll run it back around the corner and see what round 2 looks like against this thing.
Definitely, yeah. We need we have the before video, we need the after video here, and I don't know, 3 months, 6 months. What do you think?
We'll see how it goes. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We'll make it up as we go.
Sounds good, man. Well, thanks again.
Thanks, Anthony. Take care, guys.
Bye, everybody.